Good evening. Osio drachitsu. It's alagi, the Cherokee language. That's how we give our traditional greetings. It is my first language. Now, in English, we know the most common greeting is, hi, how are ya? And we hope they say, fine, how are you? Because if they answer anything other than that, we are stunned and don't know what to do. Well, in Cherokee, our greeting also has, in its translation, a question. And the question is one that we intentionally ask, especially our children, every time we meet them. And the question is, are you full of joy? And if a child says no, we stop for the moment and help them find their joy in this day. It seemed an apt greeting for this evening because in being here tonight with you, to share the wisdom of Nancy Giles, to be among a group of incredible leaders from across the country who care deeply about changing the narrative of our community and know that we are going to start with race. That courage for these conversations fills me with joy. I am Dr. Eric Jolly, the CEO and president of the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundations, and I've been privileged to be the one that the Center for Effective Philanthropy has asked to greet you and tell you a little more about the community that is hosting this conference. I am delighted that CEP is here and that you have joined them. Minnesota is an incredible state. In terms of giving, our citizens give more of their GDP than any other state in the nation. And setting aside religious service, we have the largest volunteerism rate in the nation. We have an incredible community, thank you, that is committed to the well-being of each of us. And I am delighted that you are here to share with us as we go through our growing pains. In Minnesota, the nonprofit sector is 14% of our employment and workforce. It's nearly 1 in 7 jobs. We deeply care about each other. We are the fastest diversifying state in the nation. That's stunning. We have the largest Hmong population in the nation, one of the largest Somali populations in the world. And we have thank you. Yes, you've seen that we have Somali leadership in our community. The St. Paul School District hosts 127 languages. Here's our challenge. 40 years ago, we were one of the whitest states in the nation, one of the least diverse. And so today we have agencies and programs that were born out of a different era, serving a community they're only now meeting. It's been a challenge. And as we work with this challenge, we've learned that we have to step back and stop being the experts. In our foundations, we've changed to a different framework, one which we call inform, form, and benefit. We want to be certain that we don't visit solutions upon communities. Coming from the Native community myself, I'm very frequently been offered solutions to problems I didn't even know we had. And so now we ask a couple of questions. The first question we ask is, who informed the work? When you come to us with a grand idea, where did it come from? We want to be certain that we divest ourselves from our leadership and invest in the community's leadership. When we ask who informed the work, so for example, if you go to the Gila River Reservation, we have 80% diabetes among women age 40 and older, 100% among men age 40 and older. An average life expectancy just a few years shy of the onset of Alzheimer's. And when the government came and offered funding for assistive memory care living, we took it. But the truth is, that community would like to live long enough to worry about getting Alzheimer's. They have a different set of priorities. Those priorities are local and they are real. Who informs the work? Who sets the agenda? Who identifies the priorities? is our first criteria in listening now. And our second one is who formed the work. We learned this lesson the hard way in Minnesota. About 5 years ago, we started a testing program for every one of our 4-year-olds. We were checking on their readiness to read and readiness to learn. It was a simple test. It was constructed by someone not from Minnesota and not familiar with our communities. Children simply had to identify what's a nonsense syllable and what's a real word. It turns out that 5 so-called nonsense syllables on this test were real words in the Hmong language. Truly bilingual children by age 4 have the highest rate of college graduation. These kids were being put in remedial programming because who formed the work was not the community that was being tested. And so we'll continue to ask the question, who benefits from the work? How have we distributed our resources? How have we invested in the agents of agencies of change that do the great work in our communities? But we will hold them accountable to finding solutions that are informed by the communities of tomorrow as well as today. That kind of listening is tough, intensive, and is more about vesting power in the community than distributing money. A part of what brought us to this is listening to many thought leaders around the nation, one of whom we tune into regularly on Sunday morning. We are blessed today to be in conversation with Nancy Giles. She is an actress, a comedian, a commentator, and an agent of change. She has been recognized by her colleagues in so many different professions. She has won the Theater World Award for her work with Second City. We thought she had only 2 Gracie Awards from her talk radio programs and then realized they forgot to list in her vita the one that she also won for television. And that means she has as many Gracie Awards as she has Emmy Awards from her work in CBS Sunday Morning. We know her from her public persona, but many more people, many young people, know her from more than 3 decades of volunteer work with kids from the Hell's Kitchen area for New York City's 52nd Street Project. She teaches young people how to use their voice. She inspires young people to be their own agents and agencies of change. She is someone who wants to do philanthropy differently by starting with her own gifts to the community and helping us open conversations about the gifts that we will bring. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Nancy Giles.
Oh my Lord, is all I can say. Eric, Jolly, that was so generous and so lovely, and I'm panicking because he said all those nice things, and then the thing about we forgot to list that award, oh, that just sounds so lame on my part. Okay, Grace Nicolette, I'm saying this for you. I am so nervous right now, okay? We discussed this. I'm so honored to be here. I want to thank Eric, I want to thank Grace Nicolette, Phil Buchanan, and everybody at the Center for Effective Philanthropy. I'm honored and humbled to be here, and I say this sometimes at other times when I speak. I wish that Spanx was one of the co-sponsors. Because, right? Okay? Because one of the things that helps to calm me down when I begin to speak to you is to make certain adjustments, which I'm going to make right now. And you can feel free to take this moment with you and know that what most of us now know as wedgies, my sweet mom used to refer to as having a letter in the mailbox. Run with that, if you will. Run with that. Oh my God. And the other thing I'm grateful for also, just out of pure vanity, is that I'm staying at this hotel and the event was here because it's raining outside, and rain on this head of hair takes it from, I know we can relate, right? Right? It takes it from having this kind of like cool texture to me looking like Link on Mod Squad. And and if you're too young to know who Link on Mod Squad is, talk to someone who will explain what that means. Okay, so this whole conversation about race thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell a couple of stories, and it might get a little bit bumpy, it might not, but I stress to you the fact that it is okay to laugh, because most of these are funny. Hopefully they'll provoke some thought or whatnot. You can take notes, because we're going to be having some question and answer stuff afterwards. If you don't believe something that I said, that couldn't have happened, we'll talk about that. Know also that I do not speak for the entire Black community, which I know it seems like it's an obvious thing to say, but sometimes you have to say that I am just speaking for myself, a postmenopausal, city-dwelling, college-educated, without kids, media type who used to act but likes mouthing off even more. So I represent just me. And one thing that I'll say to this group and to all of you philanthropic leaders across the country, because recently I had the good fortune of applying for a grant through, well, I better not name exactly who. It's not that I'm mad at them. I didn't get it, so a little bitter, but I'm not going to say who. I'm very bitter. Okay, anyway. I was saying this to Eric beforehand, the process of applying for said grant, which was a kind of an artist thing for artists at different points in their lives that are older and maybe transitioning to different ways to express their creativity. It was hard, man. The questions and the specificity and who do you speak for and who do you, it was, so, okay, so we'll get back to that later, but if you guys could make those forms easier, just, wait. Or maybe, I'm speaking very generally, but maybe there's a way to have, for some of them to be like an oral exam. You know how you used to get up and just, I think I would score very well on those. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I talk about in my conversations about race just has to do with this line. Are there actual Black women who aren't strong and sassy, but neurotic and even unsure of themselves? I am. I'm not a sage. I don't have all the answers. I never did. I probably never will. And sometimes, believe it or not, that can sort of fly in the face of what a lot of people perceive Black womanhood to be, just like Black personhood. It's not one thing. Like I did a solo show and I end by saying, what is the Black experience? And I realized that I am Black and I've had experiences, so this is the Black experience for me. Right, basic stuff, but you would be surprised how sort of confusing that can be for people. And I like to turn it on its head by saying to people when they talk about the Black community, and this is sometimes Black people talking about the Black community and other types of people talking about the Black community. Have you ever heard anyone use the expression the white community? No, right, because we don't all think the same about things. And it's a kind of a basic plot point that I think it's gotten a lot better, but I can't underscore it enough that everyone is a living, breathing individual, and we have living, breathing individual needs that, sometimes are being met, sometimes aren't, and the whole road is pretty rocky. But here's a little story about me as a kid. I always hated the TV show Daktari. Does anybody remember that show? Okay, if you don't, I'll explain. It was a show that took place in Africa, and I'm a kid, all right? This is the 60s, so no judgments, I'm just telling you how, okay. And there were white people that were living in Africa, which was a concept that even as a child, I thought was inherently wrong. I used to watch and go, why are they there, Years later, when the movie Out of Africa was released, I remember thinking, if they just changed the title to Get Out of Africa, I might be interested in that. So anyway, okay, Daktari took place on this game reserve, right? And think of this little first grader watching these white people working as conservationists or zoologists or something. And they cared very deeply about the animals and the environment. And they were always kissing and cooing the little lion cubs and baby cheetahs and the panther kittens and leopards. And they loved the elephants and the gorillas and the chimpanzees. And they would even sometimes even go as far as talking baby talk, and, putting a little clothing on them and whatnot. And I was always confused that they would be so lovey-dovey to the animals, and then when they were talking to the people who worked for them, they were like, "Black boy, clean cage." Yeah. As a kid, I was like, that doesn't seem right, right? Okay. So fast forward a little bit, and let me tell you a little bit about my college experiences, because those were another one of those moments that were sort of a little lightning rod of something. Oberlin College, Ohio. Oh, I know your daughter's gone. Wait, you're right? I heard. Congrats, right on. Oberlin, yeah. Well, maybe it's not so right on. Wait, I better tell this. Okay. No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Sorry, it's a done deal? No, I loved it. But, okay. I didn't know that going in. Okay, anyway. So Oberlin, as you know, Phil, was the first coeducational college in the country, and it was the first college to admit students regardless of race. They did this back in 1833. So around 150 years later, when I was going there still weren't that many ethnic students there. I think it was hovering around 8 or 9%. But picture this, it's freshman orientation weekend. I'm in a dormitory lounge with these overstuffed wing chairs, and there's like a bunch of languishing white students and one languishing black student, and that's me. So we're sitting in the dorm room languishing, and it's very late. There's empty coffee cups on the floor, various kinds of smoke hovering in the air, all that excited first time meeting somebody and sharing chatter, You have a car? I ride in cars. Oh my God, we're alike, And I'm talking to this guy, and suddenly he sort of breaks down and starts to cry. He says, "It's just that, you're so great. And you're so black. And it's just, I've never had a black." You see, there was this woman, she took care of me when I was growing up. Her name was Maisie, and she was like my real mother because, growing up, my mother wasn't, we lived in Scarsdale, and it's just, I don't see you as black. I see you as Nancy. Well, I was crying too, This was what Dr. King was talking about. We were, at that moment, judging each other not based on the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. We held hands, I felt like I was experiencing something with him, And 2 weeks later, I was so in love with this Japanese biology major, and I was envisioning our beautiful Afro-Asian Japanese children, and I thought, this unity, integration, racial harmony thing, this is really good, right? Okay, by sophomore year, I had taken Black Studies, and I read the Autobiography of Malcolm X, and I was ready to punch anybody's lights out. If one more person touched my hair and said how soft it was, "Don't touch my hair," It became a whole other thing and a whole different kind of recognition of what exactly was going on. And I guess in that conversation, that whole not seeing you as black, which seemed like a real compliment at first, then became sort of an affront, like, well, gee, you're not seeing a very basic part of me. You're trying to shut that part out as if it bothers you or you don't like it or it's getting in the way. It reminds me, it harkens back to that whole America as a melting pot, which I never liked, that idea of us all melting and becoming one. No, it's more, we're a salad, for Christ's sakes, All these different ingredients, right? The United States is kind of the bowl, right? And in a perfect world, I think this is what even with their misogyny and racism, I think that this is what our founders sort of envisioned, these differences, the e pluribus unum, out of many one, we all coexist and can accept the differences and then really celebrate the commonalities. But, you know, as I will tell you more about later, this is why I'm deeply in therapy right now. And why the two tools I use to try to get through these tough moments are therapy and medication. So, anyway, going on. So I'm going to jump around a little bit chronologically because I did used to act. And years ago, the first movie that I ever did, I always did small parts. It was nothing very big, but it was a movie called Offbeat. And it was a movie about these police officers in New York City. And when they weren't on the job, when they were offbeat, they were taking dancing lessons with Jacques D'Amboise in the National Ballet Theater for a big charity function. And we were bad dancers, so we were offbeat. Right, get it? Okay, all right. Anyway, yeah, most of you are silent because you never heard of the movie, and no one ever heard of the movie. It came and went, that was it. But this back in the 80s, and I played a cop, and I was so excited to play a cop. I got my cop uniform and my billy club, and I had my ticket pad, and unfortunately, at the time, the gun really made me feel like I was acting, and it was not loaded. They didn't even have anything in it. But I will admit that in my little dressing room cubicle, I did stand and play Charlie's Angels a few times with it. And okay, so go. You can judge me. It's okay. I feel really, really badly about it. Anyway, okay. So I'm playing a cop, and I got all dressed up and got to the set, and they gave me my name tag, and my character's name was Celestine Leroy. So, okay. Fine, not a name I was really familiar with, but okay. So I put my name tag on. We're shooting our first scene, my first scene in the movie. We're at Katz's Deli in New York City. And I'm at Katz's Deli with a bunch of other cops, and we've ordered our lunch, and this cranky waitress comes over and she brings her food to the table, our food to the table, and she says to all of us, "Who ordered the kasha varnishkas?" And Celestine Leroy, my character, her response is, "I be having doze." Right, it's funny, right, it's okay. That's one of those times you can laugh. It wasn't supposed to be funny, though. That was my first line of dialogue in the movie. That was gonna be my first regular line of dialogue. And by the way, those was spelled with a D. I be having doze. I-B-H-A-V-I-N-D-O-S-E. And the writer was a very well-known, a wonderful writer who had written, I'll talk about that later, quietly, because this is being live streamed and I don't want to kill my career. Anyway, okay. So that was going to be that was my first line in my first movie. I be having doze. I was playing a cop, a police officer, for Christ's sakes. I mean, do you think that I would speak to my perpetrators that way? You be under arrest. You be having the right to remain silent. If you be giving up the right to remain silent, anything you be saying kind of beep, what? I was so mortified, but I was a chicken. It was my first movie. I was in my 20s. I was grateful to have the gig. I didn't know what to do, but I thought, I don't want my parents and my friends seeing me. I be having to. So, okay, there was luckily a little technical problem when we had to shoot the scene again. So I thought in my mind, okay, what can I do? What can I do? So I'll do the line again, but this time I thought I would do it in my best kind of Julie Andrews, Raindrops on Roses type voice. Who ordered the kasha varnishkas? I be having doze. Yeah. So the director goes, "Cut," and he said, "Something's not right here." And I said, I said something like, "Listen, just, yeah." I had a thought, thought, it's probably silly. I'm just, wondering, thinking about the scene, it's really, obviously I'm not the writer, but how about, what if, I don't mean to waste time here, but how about if, when the waitress, she's so good, who ordered the kasha varnishkas? Because she's so great. What if, you can just throw this out if it's not right. What if, I say something along the lines of, I don't know, something like, "Those are mine," or, we maybe do that? So, I mean, that was my harumpy way of trying to assert myself, because it wasn't really a safe place. I couldn't go, what the fuck, you know. But I stumbled through that. I sort of stayed with my truth, as they say. And actually, if you do see Offbeat, which I don't think will even be in a recycle bin anywhere, you will hear in my first line, "Those are mine." So that was a little bit of a triumph. Oh, my God. So this brings up kind of another sort of thing with me about, the things that I'm describing that have happened in the past. One of the beauty parts about getting older, and I guess one of the beauty parts of being with an organization, is over time things have changed. Maybe they take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, but there is a constant movement forward. And for that I'm grateful, because we didn't have shows like Blackish. We didn't have filmmakers like Barry Jenkins. We didn't have a lot of examples that there are many different ways to be black. And when I was starting out in the business, the running, I want to call it a gag now, but it made me want to gag then, with myself, was I was getting from black and white people in the business that I wasn't black enough. They would say things to me in various scenarios, things like, can you sound more black? Oh, can you be more street? Forget that college crap, honey. Where are you really from? Don't be so tight. Get down. Give me more Queens, because I'm from Queens, New York. Or one director who didn't want to just say whatever it was said, can you give me more? Yeah. And here's what would happen to me. The minute that would happen, I would get so defensive that, like, all my favorite 8th grade vocabulary words would kind of defensively come tumbling out. Things like precipice, détente, brio. I didn't care. Screw you, you know. So I want to share with you, this is another turning point. This was the first time I did a voiceover, which was a radio commercial. I do a lot of voiceovers, and when I first started in the industry, I was doing voiceovers for kind of young, hip, fertile women, you know, products like hair color, birth control, you know, diet drinks and stuff like that. And then now, years later, I'm doing spots for postmenopausal osteoporosis, shaken leg syndrome, which I mistakenly once called shake and bake syndrome, which... But you know what it really is? It's that thing that the kid in your 3rd grade class that was really smart, he always had this leg going, you know, and I wanted to cultivate that. Anyway, okay, so rewind. This is the first radio commercial that I ever did, and it was one of those, can you sound more, can you be more? And there was a part of me that would just get so hardened about it, because the way I talk is the way I talk. But I'm an actress, but darn it, you know. So anyway, this is the first radio commercial I ever did where I thought, you know, you really do need to pay your New York telephone bill, so get over yourself. There are 2 girls, and I'll be reading Girl 1 and Girl 2, or as they're referred to in the script, Girl 1 and Girl 2. Girl 1, girl, how did I let you talk me into this blind date? I mean, what does your brother look like anyway? Girl 2, honey, he's really nice, and he can cook. And then there was the song, remarkably light, ooh, delightfully light, ah, true flavor in every bite. Crisco oil's light taste sets that flavor free. Now, I heard that sets the flavor free, and mind you, I'm going so nuts, I'm like, that's a direct reference to slavery! I was, you know, going a little nuts. They're talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. And then I was like, okay, you have to pay your bill, just calm down. So, Girl 1 then says, after, you know, what about this guy? Can he cook? Girl 1 says, but what does he look like? Girl 2 says, wait till you taste his fried chicken. Well, you know what? I love fried chicken, okay? Sue me. But there it was, fried chicken, right? Okay, Girl 1 again, but what does he look like? Girl 2, Mama taught him all her secrets about making food taste great. She always says whenever you want to bring out the true natural taste of chicken or fries or salad, use light tasting Crisco oil. Now at this point in my mind, I'm also going crazy like, light? What do they mean light? Light as opposed to dark? What's going on? I'm seeing all these different like, you know, crazy images and messages scrawled into the script. Girl 1, again, because it's all about the guy. Girl, you're not watching my lips. What does he look like? Girl 2, Mama says Crisco oil so light, it doesn't hide the true taste of food, just lets all that delicious goodness come through with no greasy taste and no cholesterol. Really sets the flavor free. Emancipation Proclamation. Okay. Girl 1 again, but what does he look like? It was in caps, okay? Girl 2, there he is on the steps. Girl 1, woo, woo, 8 oohs. Now that's delicious. Remind me to thank your mama. And I was like, ay, 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 ay. Is this really all it's about? But okay, you plow ahead. And at the end, there was a male voice coming in with the tag, because back then, and it's changed, but men were the ones who really, were the ones who set the message in any ad, and not the women. So this guy's voice would come in going, light tasting Crisco oil, now at a lighter price. Look for the Crisco oil 25-cent coupon in the dark and lovely hair care box. So now we're talking about straightening, black hair being relaxed and straightened. And for those of you who might not know, this is very tense hair, okay? This is intense. Relaxed was the more straight thing. And when I was a kid, you would see all these symbols of like straight hair and what would happen if your hair was straight. And I would fantasize about shows like American Bandstand or Where the Action Is and Bobby Sherman. I'm totally aging myself, but we'll discuss it later. But I could see myself, driving along Pacific Coast Highway with my hair like whipping in the wind, or so I thought. And then years later, when I actually lived in California with my hair and drove in a convertible on Pacific Coast Highway, my hair didn't whip in the wind. It stood straight up like Don King's. I mean, it's a whole different kind of thing. But that was another interesting thing about hair. I didn't realize how political hair could be until I wrote a commentary about hair for Sunday Morning, that for various reasons that I didn't quite understand at the time, because all the decisions aren't mine, it sort of sat around for a while. And what was weird was, it was from my perspective, but I was talking about how everyone, men, women, any kind of race, we all have issues with our appearance and wanting it to be different. But for some reason, it felt like the show thought it was too much about black hair, which even if it was, so what? We got a lot of issues with hair, And hair is a very political thing. It finally did make it on air, but strangely, the thing that got it in was when Gabby Douglas, that black gymnast, when she first landed on the scene, and she was the first black female to win the all-around gold medal for her gymnastic achievements, there was all of this writing about her on Twitter, and about how the nape of her hair, how it was natural looking, and she wasn't looking good. Like it was bringing the race down because her hair wasn't right. And that's like, what? What are we doing? And that's sometimes some of these conversations that I think that can exist have to start within groups. Like, why are we doing that to each other? There's a whole school of thought about things that shouldn't be said outside of the tribe. These are personal things. We shouldn't talk about them. I disagree. One of the most heated discussions that I continually have with people has to do with the word Nigger, which I don't feel like saying out loud because I never liked it. My parents never used it. I don't like it. And it's one of those words, well, there's no other word that's like it. And the thing that's always confused me about that word is, what is it about my people that we embrace? Some of us have embraced that word, and why are we the only ethnic group that dances and sings to a word that's just filled with such violence and self-hatred? But I've gotten into arguments with people who have said, I'm wrong, we have to own it, we have to reshape it, we have to talk about it. Look, one of the things about the conversations about race that I think really is always going to exist is they're always going to be ongoing. I don't know that there ever is going to be an answer to why some people feel certain ways about that word and why other people don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I try to be open to it. I've tried to persuade people otherwise. I've had people tell me that it's my psychological problem and I'm giving the word too much power and I need to get over it. But, look, that word has a lot of historical power, and I feel like, in fact, I remember thinking, among other things, when Barack Obama was elected, maybe this is a turning point and people will but see the pain behind that word and start having more pride about ourselves. But that's a different thing altogether. In fact, that reminds me of something that I wanted to read that happened when President Obama was initially elected. Just the feelings that happened with that. That was something that I never expected to see in my lifetime. And I consider myself a pretty optimistic person, but I was, shocked on that day, that Tuesday, that election day in 2008, at about 11 o'clock at night, when I was watching the election returns and I was flipping back from CNN to MSNBC's cable news coverage. I was kind of comparing both networks' high-end touchscreen graphics that they had. The United States maps with various states highlighted in red and blue, and they had voting tallies and percentages scrolling across the bottom of the TV screen. And I had a blanket, some Halloween candy, because Halloween and I had a lot of leftover candy, and a beer. And my doggy George was dreaming beagle dreams and snoring loudly right next to me. So at that moment, breaking news comes on the screen, and my stomach lurched. And I reach for the remote, and the phone starts ringing. It's Portia, my best friend of 30 years, black like me. She goes, "I can't believe it. I've been crying all night." "Wait, something's happening," I say. And then the phone line beeps. It's another friend of mine. His name's Dory, a former fling. Now he's a friend. Born in Israel, he's a political obsessive like me. "We did it, baby. CNN just called it. We're in." "Wait," I said. "I'm switching to CNN. Call you back." Phone beeped again. Bridget, 13 years old, 5 houses up the street. She's been my friend since she was 5 years old. She's Irish Catholic. She screams, "Oh my God, Nance, he did it, oh my God." And I heard her mom laughing in the background. "We love you." And I said, "Love you too, let me call you back." And I'm pushing buttons on the remote, and the phone keeps vibrating. Now it's a text from a friend. "I've never been more proud to be an American." My friend and 2-day-a-week assistant, Chris. And then I finally see it on the screen. Obama wins. God, I'm going to cry just thinking about this. First African-American president of the United States, President Obama. I said it out loud to hear how it sounded. President Barack Hussein Obama. Hussein, by the way, is Arabic for good looking, okay? Right? My dog George was now wide awake and annoyed at all the phone calls and me jerking around with the remote control. I sat there and just stared at the TV screen, and I didn't cry. Everybody was crying. Even Jesse Jackson, they caught him during the new president's victory speech. Of course, for various reasons, I thought to myself, yeah, he's thinking, why wasn't that me? And why did I make that remark about wanting to, he made so many remarks that disqualified him. Anyway, okay. And I watched the crowd celebrating. They were black, elderly, wealthy, Latinos, college students, union members, white, Asian, teachers, volunteers, artists, Native Americans, lawyers, students. And the last time in my life that I felt so connected to so many people was during the spring concert in 1969 at PS 30 Queens. It was my 3rd grade class, and we sang a medley of protest songs protesting the Vietnam War, and we ended with the song Aquarius from Hair. And we had heard that on Broadway, the actors made a statement and took off their clothes at the end of the show. So us 3rd graders decided we were going to make our statement. No, our statement was, we flipped the stage lights on and off. That was our statement, and we were hip, right? But there it was, President Barack Obama, a brainy president. Think of it. Someone who's intellectually, I know. This is old. Believe me, I know. We'll all have drinks later. Okay. He's intellectually curious. He reads books. His mom woke him up early and made him study a little harder. What a great thing, I thought, for young kids to hear about. Maybe they'll think getting good grades is cool. Maybe my people will finally stop using the word nigger. It's even hard for me to say that word or even write that word. Maybe we'll have more pride in ourselves and of our ancestors and what we've accomplished. We're the people who came to this country in chains, as slaves, as property. We were separated from our language, our families, our homeland. We helped build this country, but weren't considered human beings. We were property. And despite that and the incredible obstacles we faced over the last 300 or so years, look at what we've done, I thought that night. I wondered what my parents, both in heaven, must have thought about that. My mother was a World War II veteran, and she joined the Women's Army Corps when the Army was segregated. My father lost an eye as a young boy and was the only son in the family who didn't make the military his career. He was a senior draftsman at an architectural firm, and it was my mom's GI Bill that helped them buy the family home. And they had 7 kids, and we believed we could do anything, but I still never thought I would see that day. And I thought then, what an incredible symbol of the idea that this is the President of the United States of America. And I finally, was able to smile. I can't believe that I'm looking at that and it looks like my time is up, because there's so much more to say about race and about having a conversation. I guess one of the things that I would say in wrapping up, now I'm eating into some other time, is no one in this room should be afraid to talk or ask questions. It's okay, even if you feel they're dumb. Better ask it than not. No one lesser than James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced." So don't worry about whether any questions or any thoughts you have may be sloppy, politically incorrect, not well thought out. A conversation is so much better than holding things in. I was watching the news today and hearing about this woman, let's see, I don't know if I'm gonna get her name right, Justine Diamond, who was killed by a cop and was awarded $20 million. And there's another young man who was also killed by the police, a black man, who I guess the city council has rejected any kind of settlement claims. And I know that each case is unique, but I tell you, just the optics of seeing a white woman killed by a black cop getting $20 million and a black person killed by a white cop getting nothing, those things, they hurt. They're hurtful, and they really are harmful to, I think, our psyche, our national psyche. In New York City, they have these elite public high schools, and one of them, Stuyvesant High School, when I was of that age, admitted, it was a very rigorous school, but it was very, very diverse, and hundreds of black kids from all over the city would take the test and get in and be admitted to the school. This year, I think it was 6 African-American students, and it was a stat that was plastered right on the front page of the New York Times, and it hurts. These things, they really do hurt. They leave like psychic scar tissue, but you all in this room are in a position to really make a difference. And where you decide your money should go and how you can follow through with where that money goes and who it affects, and whenever you can get feedback from the actual people that are benefiting from or not benefiting from the programs that you establish, man, I think that the idea is so wonderful, but it's getting the real information to make sure that you get bang for your buck, that what you're trying to do actually gets done. I'd say that's the most important thing that I can import standing here today. And I love talking about these crazy stories. I've got a bunch more. I've got like 30 pages of this stuff that I could go on and on about, but I'm as interested in any kind of conversation or questions or whatnot that you might have with me about either the stuff that I talked about or stuff that's going on with your organizations or in the news or whatever, without getting too political, although we probably have to get political to a certain extent. So I'm gonna actually stop talking right now, try to very gracefully wipe my sweaty brow, and then offer up you guys for any kind of questions or anything like that you might have right now. So thank you for listening to me. I can't believe I ate up my time like that. I didn't even get to everything, but now it's you. Thank you. Now it's on you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, really. Thank you.